What is going on, everyone? My name is Jamon McKinney, but of course you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, into the Juice Alert. If you have not subscribed to the Juice Alert already, be sure to do that right about now. You will not regret it. You can find the Juice Alert on YouTube as well as podcasting platforms. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that great stuff. If you enjoy this show, if you enjoy what you're watching on your screen here on YouTube, be sure to leave this episode a like. And also, if you're listening on podcasting networks or platforms and you enjoy what you're listening to and hearing, be sure to leave the show a good 5-star rating and review. Guys, it only takes about 20 seconds to leave a rating and leave your feedback regarding this show, whether it be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You get the point. Just take some time, to help me out and support the channel. That way, if you do not mind and you're enjoying what you're hearing and watching, Super Bowl 58 was amazing. I'm coming to you guys literally less than an hour after the game has concluded in real life time. This will be getting out to you guys, as soon as, as soon as I'm done wrapping up my thoughts and, putting the show together for you guys right here, right now. But before I do get started, I just want to say, follow me on social media as well. If you have not already, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter/X, as well as TikTok. I put all the links to my social media accounts in the description of this episode. You can also find, the social media accounts linked to the Juice Alert show itself, where I post all the short clips and, updates regarding this specific show. So be sure to jot those handles down if you haven't already. And last but not least, before I dive right into a great show, check out MLBBro.com. You can find some of my content on MLBBro.com social media platform, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And also, if you want to just check out the regular MLBBro.com website, there's blogs and merchandise out there. And MLBBro.com, to put it short and sweet for you guys, it's basically African Americans covering the game of baseball from an African American lens and perspective. So be sure to check that out if you have not checked it out already. Boy, oh boy, man. I made the claim that Super Bowl 58 between the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs was going to be an all-time classic game. And boy, oh boy, did the Super Bowl live up to the hype. I mean, this game had everything you could have asked for as a football fan. It was one of the best football games I've ever watched from an entertainment standpoint from start to finish. But what's the biggest takeaway from the Chiefs knocking off the 49ers 25-22 in overtime in Super Bowl 58? The reality of the Kansas City Chiefs winning their third Super Bowl in a 4-year stretch and beating the 49ers in Super Bowl 58 is the Kansas City Chiefs have completely one-upped the San Francisco 49ers on their way to being a dynasty. If a couple of things would have bounced San Francisco's way in this particular Super Bowl and in the Super Bowl in which they faced Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs a couple of years ago, we'd be talking about the 49ers as a dynasty, to be quite honest with you. But here's the thing. The harsh reality and the sad truth about the San Francisco 49ers franchise right here, right now, fresh after losing to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs once again in a Super Bowl, is the 49ers, they've done almost everything right. They've drafted well. They've got a great scouting department. The coaching staff is unbelievable. They have an elite running back in Christian McCaffrey. Everyone says, oh, you can't go out and get an elite running back. It's not worth it. The 49ers proved that wrong to me. You have an elite running back. You have an elite left tackle in Trent Williams. You've got receivers. Deebo Samuel, is great. Brandon Ayuk is great. George Kittle's amazing. You've got an all-star level roster. Even the Chase Young trade seemed to pay off in that Super Bowl. You got pass rushers. You got pretty much everything. It seems like the San Francisco 49ers have done almost everything right in terms of building their team from the ground up, drafting well, and trying to create a Super Bowl caliber team. However, someone on the block has one up to them. Someone on the block just flatly does it a little bit better than the San Francisco 49ers, and that is Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Sometimes in life, even if you work hard and put your best foot forward, the sad reality of life is that sometimes there's someone out there just a little bit better than you. And it's sad. It's a life lesson you have to learn. You have to get over at some point, but it's the truth. Because here's the thing, people. There are tons of Olympic gold medalists out there, or at least I should say, there are tons of Olympic gold medalist caliber athletes in our world right now. Some have worked their entire lives to win a gold medal at the Olympics. But unfortunately, sometimes there's just some athletes and some people out there that are just a little bit more physically gifted than you. And no matter how much work you put in, they're probably always going to be a little bit better than you on their best day. See, the San Francisco 49ers have put together a great burger restaurant in food terms. But unfortunately, the Kansas City Chiefs, their special sauce and the way they make burgers is just a little bit better. And even if people have to drive 20 miles up the block to get the special that is the Kansas City Chiefs, they're probably going to do so over what the 49ers have to offer. That's where we're at regarding the 49ers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are an all-time great dynasty, and the 49ers in relatively any other era, potentially. I say potentially because there's been other dynasties in the past, whether it be the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Steelers, you get the point. But in some other years, more than likely, the 49ers are challenging to become a dynasty because they draft well. They have the great coaching staff. They have found a very good quarterback in Brock Purdy. Everyone talked about Jimmy Garoppolo, how, Garoppolo is just an average guy. The 49ers need a great quarterback potentially. Brock Purdy was in the MVP conversation this season. Now, I'm not sitting up here saying Brock Purdy is a game-changing elite quarterback, but he's pretty darn good. It is hard to find a good franchise starting quarterback in the NFL, and it seems like the 49ers have found that in Brock Purdy. But unfortunately, he's not Patrick Mahomes. As good as Kyle Shanahan is, he's not Andy Reid. As good as George Kittle is, he's not Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's the greatest tight end of all time. George Kittle, he'd be lucky to make the Hall of Fame one day, and maybe he's going to do that one day, but you get the point. This is a very good show on turf being compared to one of the greatest shows on turf we've ever seen, and that's the sad reality about the 49ers, because if you're the San Francisco 49ers and you go back to the drawing board this morning after losing in the Super Bowl, you ask yourself, what more can we do? We've made the trades. We've signed the free agents. We've got a good mix of young players and veterans on our roster. We found a quarterback in Brock Purdy that's capable. What more else do we need to do? And unfortunately for the 49ers, the reality may be at some point in the future, your best bet is to just avoid the Kansas City Chiefs altogether in the Super Bowl, because that may be the only way they actually win a Super Bowl. And this is all-time great stuff we're talking about regarding Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Patrick Mahomes, you can make the argument he's well on his way to becoming the greatest quarterback of all time. The guy's got 3 Super Bowl trophies to his name, 3 Super Bowl MVPs. This was arguably Patrick Mahomes' worst statistical season in the regular season, and he still throws for over 4,000 yards, still finds a way to win 10 games, and boom, what do you know? He comes up clutch in the fourth quarter, finds a way to win, and what do you know? The Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl, and they've won another Super Bowl. You have to just give credit to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, where the 49ers potentially messed up is they recognized that they were in a position where they were good enough, but maybe not quite good enough to win a Super Bowl. They were good enough to consistently be a playoff team, consistently win their division, even against the likes of Sean McVay and the Rams, which is impressive, but will they ever reach Super Bowl status? Because the Kansas City Chiefs were in a very similar situation the 49ers were in several years ago, where you had Alex Smith as your quarterback, and he was good, he could win games, but Alex Smith was never going to win you a Super Bowl unless everything broke his way. And in the NFL, that's probably unlikely. So the Chiefs, they decided to wreck the entire NFL, identify an all-time talented quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, traded up for the guy, and boom, they become a dynasty instantly when Mahomes starts playing. The 49ers tried that with Trey Lance. They said Trey Lance is a big, strong, tall, athletic quarterback, that looks the part. He could potentially be our version of Patrick Mahomes. But unfortunately, the 49ers swung and missed on Trey Lance. And I'm not here to diss Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is more than capable, and Brock Purdy's story is not fully done. But the reality is, Brock Purdy is a guy that can operate at a high level within a system. He's not a generational talent. He's not a game-changing quarterback, and that's fine. That's not me hating on Brock Purdy. In terms of a Patrick Mahomes, those guys come around once, maybe every 30 years. I mean, we're talking about who's a more talented quarterback compared to Patrick Mahomes. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe Dan Marino. I understand Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time because of his resume, but in terms of God-given ability, Tom Brady cannot touch Patrick Mahomes. That's just the honest truth. And I even think Tom Brady himself would tell you that. That doesn't take away from what Brady's done, but I'm just talking about God-given physical ability. Patrick Mahomes has everyone trumped, maybe outside of Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is the only quarterback that can rival Patrick Mahomes in terms of just pure ability to throw the football and God-given ability in terms of just flinging that rock around that field, because it is all-time special stuff when you watch the guy play. And the reality is, Michael Jordan denied a lot of guys of championship rings. Charles Barkley is one of the all-time great players in NBA history. His story would be a little bit different if he would have beaten Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals. Same thing with Karl Malone. Do you realize that Karl Malone is the third all-time leading scorer in NBA history as we speak today? If Karl Malone finds a way to beat Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals, we're having a lot more different conversations about Karl Malone, but unfortunately, he didn't get it done. Charles Barkley didn't quite get it done. Clyde Drexler didn't quite get it done. Just like with Tom Brady, look at a guy like Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is statistically, just looking at the numbers, maybe one of the 10 best quarterbacks ever. Now, he's not in my top 10 all time. I'm just talking about Phillip Rivers' numbers and overall body of work. He obviously didn't win a lot, and statistics aren't everything. But if you look at Phillip Rivers' statistics, he's top 10 all time in touchdown passes and passing yards. But you wonder, why did Phillip Rivers never quite get it done? Mainly because of his own shortcomings, and he wasn't the greatest quarterback in the clutch, but also, for the most part, he had to go through Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the Patriots. And unfortunately, Phillip Rivers got lost in history, never once beat Tom Brady and a healthy Patriots team. And right now, today, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they are the standard. They're the new Brady and Belichick. Until someone knocks them off, it's going to be their NFL league to run. That's the reality. And I don't think anyone should be denying it. And when it comes to the 49ers, I think the 49ers recognize this, and they said, as good as Jimmy Garoppolo can be, even though Brock Purdy is talented, we need a gunslinger that can potentially be our version of Patrick Mahomes in Trey Lance, and the Trey Lance experiment failed for the 49ers. It's unfortunate. Trey Lance got hurt, never quite was ready to be an NFL starting quarterback when his name was called upon. And the 49ers, they're in an urgent state because they have a roster that's ready to win right now, so they roll with Brock Purdy. And I'm not necessarily blaming them for rolling with Brock Purdy because Brock Purdy put up a great, valiant effort. And I think the future is bright for Brock Purdy. But all I'm saying is, when it comes to Mahomes and the Chiefs, they completely won up the 49ers. They beat the 49ers at their own game. The 49ers had the exact same vision the Kansas City Chiefs had, with their own variant of their secret sauce, meaning they kind of more so invested in defense early on in their stages of building their team. Meanwhile, the Chiefs more so invested in offense in terms of building their team, and now it's kind of reversed. The Chiefs are more so relying on defense. The 49ers are more so relying on offense. There's little wrinkles here and there that are different in terms of the Chiefs and the 49ers philosophy, but for the most part, they're in the same ballpark in terms of what they envision for a Super Bowl caliber winning team. But unfortunately, the Chiefs are just flatly better than the 49ers. They took the same blueprint and They made it their own. They ran the blueprint and executed the plan better than the 49ers just because Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, 9 times out of 10, maybe even sometimes 10 times out of 10, they're better than your head coach and your starting quarterback. And by the way, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. I doubted them for a little bit, during these playoffs. I didn't think that they were going to lose to Buffalo, but I felt Baltimore had a chance to beat them. I felt the 49ers were the better team, and maybe right now they are just a little bit more well-rounded, but it doesn't matter. When you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, all realistic expectations go out the window because you're dealing with one of the greatest dynasties of all time. Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce. You have a guy like Chris Jones, who's part of the band, that no one seems to really talk about. Could be a Hall of Famer one day. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's my full breakdown of the Super Bowl. I thought the Super Bowl was a great matchup overall. I felt San Francisco came out really hot. They came out with a lot of energy. You had Chase Young getting a sack early on. Nick Bosa seemed juiced up, but unfortunately the 49ers, they just made a couple too many mistakes. Christian McCaffrey had that fumble, early in the game that took potential points off the board for the 49ers. Obviously, you had the 49ers kicker, I believe Jake Moody, missing an extra point that really, really had an effect on how the game was called down the stretch, because if the Chiefs are down 4 points late in the game, they're forced to score a touchdown to potentially stay in the game, whereas they just at that point needed a field goal to stay in the game, and the game went to overtime, and the Kansas City Chiefs just found a way to win. It seems like even when it comes to Patrick Mahomes, it's not always pretty. It's not as pretty as Aaron Rodgers, and that's another thing. I think that people looked at Patrick Mahomes coming out of Texas Tech and they said, it's not always pretty with Mahomes. So, I'm a little bit turned off, but it doesn't always have to be pretty. As long as you have the intangibles and you can get the job done and be that stone cold killer in the fourth quarter, I really don't care how pretty it looks. Mahomes finds a way to get it done when the chips are on the line. He is one of the clutchest athletes that I've ever watched in my history of watching sports, just flat out. He's one of the clutchest football players in NFL history. He's right up there with Tom Brady. He is in that same tier. Peyton Manning was pretty clutch. Joe Montana was one of the more clutcher quarterbacks for sure. Obviously, you have to give a lot of respect to him for winning 4 Super Bowls, and being 4-0 in the Super Bowl. But Patrick Mahomes, he's building his own legacy. And I think that Patrick Mahomes has a chance to go down as a quarterback with maybe the greatest resume of all time, while also being the most skilled quarterback of all time. When it's all said and done, we can look back on Patrick Mahomes and say, yeah, from a talent perspective, that's a bad brother. Can't nobody touch him, potentially. But also, he's got the resume too. He's got the numbers. He's winning Super Bowls. Like, Mahomes is changing the way we are going to discuss the quarterback position 25 years, 35 years from now. We're going to be changing how we look at quarterbacks because of Patrick Mahomes. He is truly amazing. He's one of a kind, one of my favorite athletes to watch. And if you want to call Patrick Mahomes the greatest quarterback of all time, I'm not quite there yet. I do think that I need to see a couple more Super Bowl trophies and a couple more great postseason runs. And let's be real, Tom Brady did knock off Patrick Mahomes twice in a Super Bowl. Well, not in the Super Bowl, twice in the playoffs, once in the Super Bowl in blowout fashion, and also in Patrick Mahomes' house in the AFC Championship game. But at that point, Patrick Mahomes was kind of a young gun, He wasn't quite in the prime of his career. Meanwhile, Brady wasn't necessarily in the prime of his career, but he was still a seasoned veteran that just knew how to win. Mahomes hadn't quite figured out how to win just yet when he met Tom Brady in the playoffs. And same thing with the Chiefs. They had to fix their defense a little bit, kind of change their philosophy. And they had to go through the trials and tribulation of falling to a Tom Brady to get to this point where they're beating Kyle Shanahan's of the world. So that's my overall analysis, And by the way, Buffalo Bills fans, I have a question for you. Are you still content with the Buffalo Bills deciding that Josh Allen is a guy that you'll take over Patrick Mahomes? Because you had a chance to draft Patrick Mahomes back in 2017, but you traded away the pick, and the very next year, you had to settle for Josh Allen. And I'm not taking anything away from Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is a very talented quarterback in his own right. But Patrick Mahomes is a once in a lifetime type of quarterback, and you passed on him. And it's so crazy to me that Mitchell Trubisky was taking over Patrick Mahomes in the 2017 NFL draft. I mean, it's crazy. I'll kind of get to more of that analysis here in a little bit, but congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs for winning Super Bowl 58. I think the halftime show was also amazing. It was great. I will dive into that a little bit more later on as the show progresses because it seems like people, for some reason, did not enjoy Usher's halftime show. At least some people that I saw talking about it on Twitter. I had a friend hit me up via text saying, "Man, did you see that Usher halftime show? It wasn't very good." And I looked at him and that text message and I said, "Are you delusional? Like, are you? What was I watching the same halftime show as you?" So we'll get into that and the gist of things. But Mahomes, Andy Reid, and by the way, shout out to Travis Kelce. You performed great in front of your boo, Taylor Swift. And last but not least, don't ever compare George Kittle to Travis Kelce ever again because the so-called big bad wolf, George Kittle, all more talented than Travis Kelce. He had a whopping 2 catches for 4 yards in Super Bowl 58 compared to Travis Kelce, who had 9 catches for 92 yards and was sensational once again. Travis Kelce is no doubt about it, the greatest tight end of all time. I understand that Rob Gronkowski has a right to put himself in that conversation. If you want to say it's Rob Gronkowski, that's fine, but I'm going to disagree. I think Travis Kelce, for my money, is the greatest tight end of all time. I think that his body of work displays it and shows for it, and I think Kelce is wildly, wildly talented. Congratulations, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. And by the way, Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, it's a heartbreaking loss, no doubt about it, but, I mean, at some point, someone's got to lose, and unfortunately, it's Shanahan and the 49ers. And congratulations to the Chiefs. The dynasty continues to roll on. And it'll be interesting to see how much longer this dynasty continues because Patrick Mahomes, he's not even 30 years old yet. And he's still got a lot of room to grow and play quarterback in the National Football League. And it's going to be a treat to see how it pans out over time. I got to talk about Patrick Mahomes just a little bit more. I think I already fawned over him enough. Listen, is Patrick Mahomes the greatest quarterback of all time? I'll just answer this by saying it's on the table that at some point, during my years of covering sports and the game of football, I might be confident saying it one day. Mahomes, the thing about judging players and judging bodies of work overall, it's kind of like, music to a degree. As far as how I look at things, because can you really say that an album is a classic body of work after the first listen? It's kind of one of those things where let's see how this album ages over time. Let's see, how it stacks up with other albums, So when it comes to Patrick Mahomes, the cement is still very much wet, which is why I don't really like making these claims of, oh, he's the greatest of all time, can't no one touch Patrick Mahomes because Mahomes is still building on his foundation. So I would like to revisit this conversation at least 5 years from now. Let's see what we're working with. But if you want to call Mahomes the greatest of all time already, knock your socks off because the eye test, I mean, it don't lie. Like, he's wildly, wildly gifted, wildly, wildly talented, unbelievable instincts, unbelievable, twitchiness and ability to make decisions on the fly. I mean, the guy can make any throw imaginable, but I think what separates him is his leadership and intangibles, his refusal to lose and be denied when the stakes are the highest. Mahomes is elevated under pressure versus some of the best defenses of his era, some of the best coaching staffs of his era. People said early on in his career, and I was actually one of those people, look at the situation. It's Travis Kelce, it's Tyreek Hill, who to me is one of the 5 best wide receivers I've ever seen. I mean, he's maybe the fastest football player ever, Tyreek Hill. Oh, it's the offensive line. It's Andy Reid's play calling. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is a guy that landed in an all-time great situation. But if you're going to land in an all-time great situation, what are you getting out of that situation? What we're finding is Patrick Mahomes, he's got the best start to an NFL career at the quarterback position of all time. Now, does that mean he's going to finish as the definitive greatest quarterback of all time? That remains to be seen, but that's where we're at. I mean, when it comes to Mahomes, where's the weakness? to put it in baseball terms, he's a guy that can hit 50 home runs in a season and still find a way to bat 330 and not strike out and draw walks. I mean, this guy is a complete quarterback. Like, there's really virtually no weakness. How do you stop this guy? You throw blitzes at him, he finds the open man still. You drop back into coverage, he's smart enough and instinctive enough to run around and be patient and, pick his spots and pick apart the defense. We've seen Mahomes be the gunslinger. We've seen Mahomes be the patient check down quarterback. We've seen Mahomes with a lead. We've seen Mahomes without a lead. We've seen Mahomes with a bad defense. We've seen Mahomes with a great defense. He's pretty much every obstacle that's been thrown at Patrick Mahomes outside of Tom Brady, he's pretty much been able to overcome it. And even in his first playoff game versus Tom Brady, he put together a valiant effort in his first ever playoff run. Now, that Super Bowl versus Tom Brady, where the Buccaneers defense kind of figured him out and put a lot of pressure on him, that wasn't the best performance. But, sometimes you got to tip the cap to the defense. They figure guys out. Tom Brady at one point lost to Mark Sanchez in a playoff game. Ben Roethlisberger lost to Tim Tebow in a playoff game at one point. So we got to give credit to these other guys because they're getting paid as well. All right? You can't win the Super Bowl every single year. And here's the thing. What I've come to the realization is that you can make the argument that Patrick Mahomes, even at his worst, is still arguably the best in the world. You want to know why I know this? Because I just saw Patrick Mahomes in his worst statistical year in the regular season still throw for over 4,000 yards, still find a way to win 10 games with a makeshift wide receiver core, a lot of young guys. I understand the defense was great this season, but Mahomes was literally the CEO of that offense. There was no Tyreek Hill in that building. Travis Kelce is still effective and great, but he's getting older. It was all Mahomes. It was the Patrick Mahomes show on offense this season. And he was the ultimate CEO of that offense this year. And he found a way to get it done. Patrick Mahomes, in his worst statistical season, won a Super Bowl. That's amazing. I don't think we're realizing just how good this guy is. There's no competition regarding Patrick Mahomes. It's not even close debating who's the best quarterback in the NFL right now and who's the best player in the NFL right now. Mahomes is competing with himself. And the Kansas City Chiefs, they're competing with themselves. Okay? That doesn't mean that guys like Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson can't exist and we can't have footnotes to say, oh yeah, these guys are pretty talented in their own right. But in terms of who's the best, there's no doubt. It's Mahomes and the Chiefs. And until someone has an extensive body of work that proves otherwise, I don't want to hear it. See, Patrick Mahomes, I just find it is just still mind-boggling to me that 9 players were drafted ahead of this guy in the 2017 NFL draft. And I look back on that draft class, and I was very confused of why the Bears were so in love with Mitchell Trubisky. Now, I was a big Deshaun Watson fan, and I think Deshaun Watson still has a chance to rebound and, really start to have more success in his NFL career. When Deshaun Watson was healthy and didn't deal with a bunch of off-the-field issues, Deshaun Watson was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But compared to Patrick Mahomes, Mahomes has passed Deshaun and everyone in his draft class by, and he's passing guys like, Brett Favre by, potentially Aaron Rodgers by. John Elway is gone. I mean, at some point when it comes to comparing Patrick Mahomes to all-time great quarterbacks, we're going to run out of names to list. I mean, at this point, can we put Peyton Manning over Patrick Mahomes? I'm not so sure. Peyton Manning went one and done 9 times in the playoffs. 9 times. Patrick Mahomes has never been one and done in his playoff career. I understand that it's kind of a smaller sample size, but when the chips are on the line, give me Patrick Mahomes over Peyton Manning all day, every day. No doubt about it. And from a talent perspective, he's better than Peyton Manning. I'm just going to say it right now. I understand Manning had the 7 All-Pro selections, won 5 MVPs. I'm sorry, but give me Patrick Mahomes over Peyton Manning. Now, when it comes to Joe Montana, Tom Brady, I'm going to put a little bit of a pause on my evaluation of Patrick Mahomes because I think Tom Brady and Joe Montana, their postseason body of work is so great that it makes me pause a little bit. And in terms of just talent, I think Joe Montana threw one of the best deep balls of all time. I think Tom Brady is one of the most accurate quarterbacks to ever live. So from a talent perspective, we're kind of underrating Joe Montana and Tom Brady, to a degree. But Mahomes is right there with them. I mean, I love Aaron Rodgers, but at some point, if Aaron Rodgers don't win another Super Bowl, Mahomes is going to put a lot of distance between him and Rodgers. I mean, because we all know about Rodgers and his talent, but Mahomes, from a talent perspective, you can argue he's just as equally talented as Aaron Rodgers, if not more talented than Aaron Rodgers. If you say that Mahomes is more talented than Rodgers, I'm not going to, fight you on that. I might disagree, but I'm not going to fight you. And if you don't have multiple championships, can you really be in the GOAT conversation in terms of quarterbacks? Probably not. So it's going to be interesting to see how much further Mahomes can take his NFL career, because it's been spectacular up to this point. And once again, Patrick Mahomes, even at his worst, is still the best in the world. No doubt about it. Mahomes in a down year has career years for other quarterbacks. If Josh Allen would have thrown for 4,000 passing yards this season, won 10 games, got to a Super Bowl, and won a Super Bowl, it'd be the best performance of his career by far to this point. Now, we'll see what Josh Allen can do for the future, because I'm not going to write the guy off, but that's where we're at right now. Mahomes' worst season is arguably the best season for virtually 98% of all starting quarterbacks that probably have ever lived. That's saying a lot, okay? And that's how I feel about Patrick Mahomes. He's the best of the best, and you got to appreciate greatness while it's there. If anything, guys, GOAT debate, be darned, just appreciate greatness, because Patrick Mahomes, he's a great guy, ultimately the comeback kid, and I think it's amazing, and we should be appreciative that we get to see Patrick Mahomes in his prime right here, right now, and it's very fun to watch. I want to discuss Brock Purdy, because Brock Purdy heading into the Super Bowl, there were a lot of eyes on him, and rightfully so, because the 49ers, it looked like they had the roster to win the Super Bowl. And for a while, it looked like Brock Purdy and the 49ers, it seemed like they were going to pull it out. They had a lead for a while, but as the game wore on, the Kansas City Chiefs just found a way to win. But I will say, Brock Purdy's story, to me, is far from over, despite losing in the Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes. Keep in mind, people, let's take a little bit of a step back. This was Brock Purdy's first full season as a starter, second season in the NFL, and he finds himself in a Super Bowl. And for the most part, up until the fourth quarter and overtime, he was outplaying Patrick Mahomes. It looked like Brock Purdy was the better quarterback on the field. Now, eventually, Mahomes, found his rhythm, got going. And once Patrick Mahomes, gets in a rhythm and gets going, there's really no stopping him. He's an all-time great. But I felt Purdy put together a really strong Super Bowl performance. I felt he was poised under pressure, made great decisions, executed the offense at a high level. And the Chiefs, they're a tough defense. They've got great corners, a really good defensive line, solid linebackers. Like, on all three levels of their defense, they've got star players. And Purdy made plays. The only criticism I would have had with Brock Purdy is, I would have liked for him to have used his legs a little bit more. I felt that during this playoff run, what really started to ignite the 49ers' big play offense was Purdy and his ability to run the football with his legs. When Brock Purdy starts taking off running, it unlocks a whole new, element to the Kyle Shanahan system and the Kyle Shanahan offense. I don't think we can come away from this game saying Brock Purdy isn't good enough. I felt Brock Purdy played great. And there should be no questions that Brock Purdy is the future of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I will admit, in order for the 49ers to win a Super Bowl, Brock Purdy will need to continue to get a little bit better each and every game and each and every season, because Mahomes and the Chiefs aren't going anywhere. And even though the 49ers made it out of the NFC this year, you still got Green Bay lurking in the corner with a really good young team. The Dallas Cowboys, whether you want to joke about them or not, they're a very talented team. The Los Angeles Rams, who are in your division, and to me, have a better head coach than you, because I think Sean McVay is a better head coach than Kyle Shanahan. I don't think that should be in denial because when in doubt, Sean McVay's got his Super Bowl trophies to his name. Kyle Shanahan doesn't. So you got the Rams, you got Green Bay, you got the Cowboys, you got the Eagles potentially who could be reloading this year. Like the NFC is not going to be a cakewalk each year. And the AFC conference as a whole, it's loaded with great quarterbacks. You got Josh Allen, you got Joe Burrow, you got Lamar Jackson, you got Patrick Mahomes. You have potentially Aaron Rodgers lurking in the background. Maybe he'll do something, in the later stages of his career with the Jets. That's an exciting experiment that I'm looking forward to watching. So Purdy, look, he can't just be the same guy every single year. He would need to continue to get a little bit better and better. But I think Brock Purdy is talented enough and has the football IQ to get better and better every single season. And when it comes to Brock Purdy, once again, I don't think this loss should be on Brock Purdy. We should not be coming away from this game saying, yeah, Brock Purdy was the reason why the 49ers lost. Because you had a situation where Christian McCaffrey fumbled early in the game. There were some key penalties that cost the 49ers in this game as well. Jake Moody missing the extra point. And say what you want, but Brock Purdy gave the 49ers a 3-point lead in overtime, and the 49ers defense could not cash in. They had multiple opportunities to get Patrick Mahomes off the field, and they couldn't do it. So that's not on Purdy. Purdy doesn't play special teams. He doesn't play defense. He doesn't coach the entire team. He's the CEO, quote unquote, and the leader of the offense. I thought Purdy played great, played well, and I think Brock Purdy's story as Mr. Irrelevant, last pick of the draft, the cement is still wet. I think that there's a world where Brock Purdy can get over the hump and win a Super Bowl. And I believe in Brock Purdy. I think that he is a good franchise quarterback and a franchise quarterback the 49ers should believe in going forward and ultimately prove people wrong when it's all said and done. Will Kyle Shanahan ever win a Super Bowl? There was major pressure on Kyle Shanahan to win Super Bowl 58 because even though the Chiefs were gunning for that Super Bowl trophy, they're made men. Mahomes already had multiple rings. Andy Reid already had multiple rings. Travis Kelce, same thing with him. We were looking at Kyle Shanahan, who everyone seems to view as an elite head coach. But the one thing Kyle Shanahan doesn't have to his name that other elite coaches have to their name is a Super Bowl trophy and a Super Bowl victory. Say what you want about Mike Tomlin, won a Super Bowl. Say what you want about Doug Peterson, he's won a Super Bowl. Say what you want about Pete Carroll, who probably is going to retire sometime soon. He's won a Super Bowl. Say what you want about Andy Reid, multiple Super Bowl winner. Say what you want about Sean McVay, he's won a Super Bowl. Shanahan has not checked that box off. And at some point, when is Kyle Shanahan going to break through? Because there are no more excuses. Jimmy Garoppolo was used as a scapegoat for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. And honestly, I didn't hate the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo was a scapegoat because it was a legitimate criticism that Kyle Shanahan did not have his guy. It seems like Jimmy Garoppolo was just a bus rider, not a bus driver, and he never really improved upon his game as time went on. Meanwhile, Shanahan, he's adapted every single year. Shanahan needs someone to keep up. I think Brock Purdy is that guy. So you wonder, okay, you find your quarterback in Brock Purdy. What's the excuse, Shanahan? What's the excuse? What do the 49ers not have from a roster standpoint? Now, let me be very clear. I'm not here to bash Kyle Shanahan. I'm not here to necessarily call him overrated, even though I do think you can make that argument still to this day. I thought Shanahan put in a valiant effort, but ultimately, Kyle Shanahan is good enough to where we're going to judge him by wins and losses in the Super Bowl. He's now 0-2 in Super Bowls as an NFL head coach. And not to mention, if you want to count the 1 year where he was offensive coordinator in Atlanta, he's 0-3 and blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. I understand that Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes are two all-time greats at quarterback, but you get paid the big bucks to knock them off. Doug Peterson found a way to knock off Tom Brady. Tom Coughlin found a way to knock off Tom Brady twice. John Harbaugh has beaten Tom Brady in a playoff game. Zach Taylor found a way to beat Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game in Arrowhead, in Kansas City. So Kyle Shanahan, because you're such a great, talented head coach, we have to hold you to that standard. But I just want to ask the question, will Shanahan ever win a Super Bowl? Or is Kyle Shanahan going to fall into the boat where he's being denied championships because of an all-time great dynasty? Because I think he's a little bit closer to that category, because at some point, like, when is Shanahan going to get over the hump? He's been in the game for several years now. He's gotten 2 cracks at a Super Bowl. Both times has had a lead late in the game and has not been able to cash in. That's coaching. I understand players have to execute, but at some point, when are we going to hold you accountable as a head coach to make the adjustments and to finish off these games? The best coaches in the NFL, they finish games. They take these W's when they have these leads late in the fourth quarter. I think Shanahan has taken some steps forward, however, because there was a stat roaming around where, Shanahan, when trailing with 5 minutes in the fourth quarter, he's what, like 0-31? Shanahan multiple times when trailing in the fourth quarter this season in the playoffs, he found way he was able to rally the 49ers to victory behind his quarterback, Brock Purdy. So Shanahan is progressing forward, but at some point, people aren't going to look at these moral victories. They're going to look at the wins and losses flat out and say, okay, did you get it done or did you not get it done? So the question for the audience is, will Kyle Shanahan ever win a Super Bowl? It is very much up in the air for Kyle Shanahan if he ever does that, because if you look at the 49ers, you wonder, what more can we do? We've made the necessary trades. We've drafted the players. We've found you a quarterback, Kyle Shanahan. At some point, when is it going to be your year and your time to say, I'm the best in the world? So I'm interested to see if that ever happens, and if Kyle Shanahan ever wins a Super Bowl. Only time will tell, but Shanahan might be running out of time. And that's the reality, but we shall see as time goes on. I got to talk about this Super Bowl halftime show, man, because it seems like for whatever reason, there's a lot of polarizing opinions about Usher's Super Bowl 58 halftime show. A lot of opinions. I'm scrolling through Twitter. Some people are saying, oh yeah, best halftime show I've ever seen. And some people are saying it's arguably the worst halftime show I've ever seen. Now, for me, I'm the guy that brings reasonable takes and viewpoints to this discussion. It wasn't the greatest Super Bowl halftime performance ever, but it was far from the worst. I felt Usher more than delivered with his Super Bowl halftime performance. I felt Usher brought great energy. I felt his dance moves were on point. I would have liked to have seen him, kind of pick up the pace a little bit with some of his dance moves, where he was kind of just, being a smooth guy. And, it looked like he was kind of just going through the motions, especially early on in the performance. But I mean, when you're performing in the Super Bowl, the last thing you want to do is run out of gas. So I understand, if Usher was kind of just going through the motions, the first couple of songs, and then he kind of kicks it into a new gear. But I felt Usher's dance moves and dancing performance and overall, singing performance was great. I felt Usher knocked out the park. I felt Usher matched the energy of the Super Bowl. The worst thing you want to do is have the Super Bowl be a great game and the halftime show kind of drag the energy of the room down. I felt the energy of the room was up. And I was kind of sad and upset that I was not there live to witness Usher's electric halftime performance, because I felt Usher did great. I mean, I liked the collaborations too. Alicia Keys was there. You had Jermaine Dupri. You had Ludacris. And boy, oh boy, Alicia Keys, in that red with that piano, with her vocals, her performance, she low-key stole the show. I know it was Usher's show, but Alicia Keys, I had my eyes on her definitely, because chef's kiss. It was great, and I felt their collaboration overall was amazing. And I don't understand the critics that are saying Usher's halftime performance wasn't good. Like, if you're one of those people out there that did not like Usher's halftime show, I'm very, very interested what you didn't like about it. So comment what you didn't like about it. Hit me up on social media. Talk to me in person if you see me, because I want to know what Usher could have done to sway your opinion otherwise. I thought Usher laid it all out on the line. And Usher recently said in an interview that I've been preparing to be the lead performer at a Super Bowl halftime show since I was about 15 years old. All the work I put in up to this point has led me up to this point. And what did Usher say during his performance? Mama, we made it. So I really was emotionally invested in Usher's performance because I felt that it was one of those situations where we know about, the awards that Usher has won. We know about all the performances he's had. We know about his talent as a dancer, a songwriter, a vocalist, a producer, but this was his all-time great culminating moment to me because, he's kind of past his prime. He did recently come out with a new album, but it's probably going to be far from his best work. This is what you live for as a live music performer, to perform in front of 80,000 people in a stadium, to be a performer on a telecast that maybe the biggest telecast in American sports for that particular given year. So I felt Usher crushed it. I felt Usher did great, did well. And by the way, I've been to a lot of concerts. I recently saw Usher is going on tour, and that Super Bowl halftime performance is making me second guess why I have not bought tickets to an Usher concert yet. So I felt Usher crushed it. And Usher, if you're watching this, you did great. I was very much inspired by your performance. You were amazing. And I felt your collaboration with the likes of Alicia Keys, Ludacris, Jermaine Dupri, all the people that you brought along with you to put together this halftime performance was great. It was amazing. And I really enjoyed it. I felt that Usher's halftime performance was great in Super Bowl 58 and it matched the energy of the game. And that's ultimately what I was looking for as a fan. Just can Usher bring another element to my TV screen and entertain me? And I felt Usher was great. He was amazing. But let me know what you felt about Usher's halftime performance. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. The last and final topic of the day is Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. It's interesting because I felt the Ravens were a worthy Super Bowl caliber team this season. Unfortunately, they fell to the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. But I will say, that Super Bowl 58 matchup between Chiefs and 49ers, that was an all-time classic. So it would have been hard for Baltimore, at least from an entertainment perspective, to match what Kansas City did. But, Baltimore was a really talented team, and I felt they could have at least matched Kansas City potentially. And some were even arguing on paper they were better than Kansas City. And they probably could have knocked off San Francisco as well. But that's neither here nor there. Lamar Jackson is now a two-time MVP winner. And this is great for Lamar Jackson's brand, but also to a degree, something that puts his brand under a microscope. Here's the thing. Lamar Jackson is now one of only 11 players to have won multiple NFL MVP awards. The other 10 guys that have won MVPs multiple times, they've gone on to appear in a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson has not done that yet. Lamar Jackson winning multiple league MVPs is the biggest blessing and the biggest curse for his personal brand right here, right now. Because here's the thing. In terms of Lamar Jackson's legacy, it's the biggest blessing and the biggest curse. Because on one hand, Lamar Jackson, to me at least, has punched his ticket to potential Hall of Fame status. It's very hard to leave out a two-time league MVP from the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is the best of the best. And Lamar, from a talent perspective, with the eye test, he checks that box. But also, we're starting to see the accomplishments match what we see on the talent, on what we see in terms of talent on the field, because Lamar Jackson wins over 70% of his games. He got to an AFC Championship game recently. And now he's a two-time NFL MVP award winner. And both seasons, I felt that he was the worthy MVP award winner. Some people in his first year threw out Russell Wilson, who should have won the MVP award. I disagreed. I felt Lamar Jackson was the rightful winner. Some people this season threw in Dak Prescott. I did not think Dak Prescott deserved the MVP over Lamar Jackson. So on one hand, Lamar Jackson, to me, is going to go down in NFL history as one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. But on the other hand, until Lamar Jackson wins a Super Bowl, there's always going to be a yeah, but next to his legacy. And it's unfair, but it's the truth, because I look at a guy like Cam Newton, who to me changed the way the game of football was played at the quarterback position. And Cam Newton was a physical specimen coming out of Auburn. And at one point, Cam Newton won a league MVP and even got to a Super Bowl, did something Lamar Jackson has not done up to this point. But no one puts Cam Newton in that Hall of Fame class and in those, all-time great quarterback discussions, because ultimately he didn't get it done in a Super Bowl. So Lamar Jackson, if he does not at least appear in one Super Bowl, he may be in danger of Cam Newton territory to a certain degree. Now, I don't think Cam Newton territory is bad, because I think Cam Newton, if he would have won that Super Bowl, to me, he would have been penciled into the Hall of Fame, no doubt about it. But this is why we play the games. The difference between Cam Newton being a Hall of Famer and not being a Hall of Famer was him not winning Super Bowl 50 versus Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. Now, in terms of Lamar Jackson, I think Lamar Jackson's body of work already is a little bit better than a guy like Cam Newton. And Lamar Jackson is not even 30 years old, and he's already a multiple-time MVP award winner. So Lamar is going to continue to win games and, put together, his talent on showcase every single Sunday. And he's going to continue to add to his body of work. And he's one of the more talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. So he's probably going to make the Hall of Fame just off of eye test and regular season accomplishments. But if Lamar Jackson does not make a deep run to a Super Bowl at some point in his career, there's always going to be naysayers that say, yeah, but. And if we're going to recognize Lamar Jackson as one of the most gifted quarterbacks we've ever seen to play the game of football, in terms of being a dual threat quarterback, meaning a quarterback that can lead the NFL in touchdown passes like he did in his first MVP season, while also being the best runner of the football at the quarterback position the NFL's probably ever seen, I think it is all right to say Lamar Jackson should be held to a Super Bowl standard. People give Matt Ryan excuses for why he blew a 28-3 lead in a Super Bowl. One of the reasons why they give Matt Ryan excuses is because we don't hold Matt Ryan to the standard of a Tom Brady, a Aaron Rodgers, or a Patrick Mahomes, because we watch the games that were played, and Matt Ryan is not that caliber of a player from a talent perspective. Lamar Jackson is that caliber of player from a talent perspective. So there's a blessing and a curse, because when you're that talented, you're expected to win the Lombardi Trophy if you have the right amount of support around you. And Lamar, the excuses are running out. You've got a good head coach. You've got a good defense. You've got a good run game. The Ravens went all in to draft players and improve the wide receiver core. They changed the whole offense for you. What's the excuse, Lamar Jackson? I understand that Patrick Mahomes is the big bad wolf on the block, but you're a two-time league MVP. You're held to a high standard as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Lamar Jackson's career plays out, because Lamar Jackson being a two-time league MVP award winner, it puts him under the Super Bowl microscope until he actually gets it done. And you could say that's unfair, but I think that that's going to be the honest truth when we look back on Lamar Jackson's legacy. But I'm interested to see how it plays out. I do think Lamar Jackson can get over the hump and win a Super Bowl, but let's see him actually do it, and time will tell if it happens. Well, folks, that's pretty much all I have today. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This show went a lot longer than I expected it to, but I'm grateful, I'm blessed, and I'm so happy I get to deliver, my takes and share my opinions with you all. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Have a God bless day. Stay safe. A lot of great content coming for you guys this football offseason. We'll also be talking some basketball and baseball and college sports as well down the road. Thank you so much. Have a God bless day. Stay safe. And I'm Ghost, Jamon McKinney, the Juice Alert, and I'm signing out for now.